Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another edition of the ARW Weekly. I am the host, Keith Cross, with another cracking podcast here tonight to talk all things Liverpool. I am joined by some fabulous guests, Mr. Phil, Mr. Jonathan, and Mr. Craig. These three gentlemen were all at the game yesterday, and will be able to give us a first-hand insight into just how exactly things went down in a quite scintillating draw. I'd like to first of all start off this podcast by giving a massive shout out to Pain Solutions Lim. They have kindly sponsored the podcast and continue to do so, and we thank you for your support. So we're going to get straight into it then. Obviously, there was the small matter of our Champions League rebirth last night as Liverpool took on Sevilla in a 2-2 draw. Lots of controversial topics to get stuck into. But before we go into all the discussions about the defending and having our half glass empty, I wanted to start with having our half glass full. So the first question I have is for Phil, who is usually a more half-glass empty kind of man. Who were the three best players last night and why?
I'm more of a smash your head over with the glass kind of guy. Who were our three best players last night? I think that's easy. Gini Wijnaldum was fantastic. Gini was really good. Mo Salah was also absolutely awesome. And Bobby Firmino, other than the penalty miss, which was awful, he worked very hard last night. Got a cheeky little goal for himself. So, yeah, those are my three. Gini is definitely a standout for me. I said it immediately after the game yesterday when we were on the pod, and I stand by it, having slept on it. Gini Wijnaldum was our saving grace in midfield yesterday. It was just a shame he couldn't do it all himself, but he had a cracking game.
Good. And Craig, who would you say it was your top three players? Do you agree with Phil, or have you gone for somebody different?
Well, I think there was only really four to put in any type of performance, so it's kind of a matter of what you want from that four. But I have to stick with Gini Wijnaldum with Phil. He really impressed both of us, and we commented a lot through the game that he was getting through a serious amount of work, and he was certainly the best player we had in the middle. Then up top, it's really any 2 from 3 that you want, because they were all really, really lively, really good, gave their all. So just to be a little bit different, I'll go with Mane, but I'm sticking with Firmino as well, because he got through an awful lot of work there yesterday and didn't really let his head drop after missing the penalty. But it is what it is. Like, it's a penalty. He tried. He missed. It's tough to be critical of anybody. So half glass full. Yeah, the front, any 2 of the front 3 basically, and Gini Wijnaldum for me.
Absolutely. And just a special mention to Gini Wijnaldum. I mean, his kind of first touch and composure and general movement last night was absolutely sensational. He should almost be banned from playing at matches away from home and should only play at home matches because he's so damn good when he's playing on that Anfield turf. Jonathan, who's your top three?
Goddamn Genie, I have that bloody song stuck in my head all day. I've been going around to meetings and struggling on. I nearly belted it out at one stage.
Do you want to belt it out now?
No, I'd rather not. I think as all the listeners will vouch, my voice isn't bad enough hack as it is. Never mind me starting badly singing again. Genie was very good considering he had 2 pretty much donkeys beside him for large periods. Hendo, I thought was, oh Jesus, he was bad.
Fuck off! This is half glass full time.
Okay, half full, half full. Genie gets a special mention, but I'm going to be all cliched. I can't look past that front 3. I thought they were amazing at times, and the only little half glass empty moment is that they didn't score more when we were on top for large periods of the game. But I thought Salah, he just looks like he's getting quicker and quicker. There was one actually quite very, very funny moment. It's one of the funniest moments of the night. Halfway through the first half, he goes into a tackle with a defender and his foot is kind of rather high, and the whole stadium, which have been quite noisy, all kind of sucked in their breath at the same time. I was like, all around the stadium. I've never heard such a collective intake of breath. It was hilarious. But he looked to. I think the first time he got the ball, he just spent his guy and ran from there, and that set the tone. He looks like he's settling into life. I thought he was sensational. As I said, it looks like he's getting faster, if that's possible. Bobby, the penalty aside, I thought he had a very good game. you get all the usual hard work and effort that Klopp was applauding at each time, but he's adding a hell of a lot more to his game. Target play, holding up the ball, some nice flicks here and there, and he got his goal. And he's developing into a proper number 9. In my mind, I thought he was quite good. Manny as well. I thought he had a very good game. I was probably a little disappointed that he took him off, considering the 3-match rest he's going to get. If you question the wisdom, I suppose we'll talk about that later. But yeah, to answer your question in a long roundabout way, in my husky voice, I'm gonna go with the front 3 as were the standout players of the night. Would I got a little mention for Genie as well,
and a little piss and moan in there as well.
Yeah, I was going to say, leave the half glass empty stuff alone. That's my part of the show.
You have that covered, have you, mate?
I have that covered.
That's Phil's specialty. We've got him ready for that. Don't worry. He's going to get his half glass empty moment.
There's an additional bonus content at the end of this podcast that will be about 4 hours of me ranting once the guys have gone to bed.
Phil is actually going to provide the post-match entertainment as well. He's found a couple of people in Liverpool that he likes. For anyone that
really friendly with
for anyone that hasn't ordered, just watch out our pre-match Periscope as we're driving up to the ground. There's one line there that seems to have grabbed a bit of attention today.
You're all crash balls, basically.
Oh, you've ruined it now.
So fuck off.
Yeah. Well, we can definitely say that Phil is definitely a ladies' man in Liverpool.
Married now. I don't.
The only time Phil is a fucking ladies' man is when he's in prison and he's the fucking bitch. That's the only time, Phil.
Oh, bringing out the DP.
Glass is still half full, lads. Glass is still half full.
So this is getting quite a trend. Last week it was Phil going to Disneyland, leaving his family behind with the au pair. This week he's testing out the nighttime entertainment in Liverpool. What could be next? I can't wait for next week.
Wait for
Find out next time. Find out next time on the ARW. No, fantastic. Well, no. One of the names I just wanted to throw out there to you guys quickly, one that wasn't mentioned, was our Spanish wizard on the left-hand side, Mr. Alberto Moreno. Phil, what was your thoughts on his performance? I thought he was our best player.
He was our best player at the back. But that's one of the things I said last night, wasn't it? It was like, when Moreno has been your best defender, it's not been a good night. But no, I mean, I'm going to be kind to him, but then I'm also going to be realistic. He had a good night last night, but if you were to stand him up next to 3 half-decent defenders in that performance last night, we wouldn't even be giving him a mention. I think he was just less shit than the others. He didn't really do anything particularly amazing, but he had a good night. I mean, he didn't lose his head like the last time he played them, so that's an improvement. I like him. I've said all along I like him. I don't think he's particularly a good choice for left back. I think bringing him on as cover or as a wing back or even sticking him further up the field works for me. But no, he had a half decent night. But ultimately, it's very, very difficult to say anything positive about our defence at the minute.
So, and believe me, we're going to get to that. Craig, Alberto Moreno, my pick to be best player of the park. Thought he was absolutely outstanding going forwards. And he kept Jesus Navas in his pocket, which is not always the hardest thing to do. Thoughts on his performance?
Yeah, I thought he coped admirably, to be fair. He was certainly our best defender, but not too sure about him being our best player. I have to go along with Phil on that one. He's impressed me this season.
Sponsored by Moreno.
He's impressed me this season, to be fair, lads. He's tried to take his chance again. He's tried to grasp it with both hands. The Klopp's given him some faith and trust, and he's put a couple of mistakes, but he's probably been solid enough to deserve to keep his place, if I'm being honest. I think he's been probably 7 out of 10 this season, but for him, that's probably like a 9 out of 10.
Absolutely. Jonathan, I wanted to get your thoughts on another player who made his Champions League bow for Liverpool in goal and is now being touted as the Champions League keeper, Mr. Loris Karius. Now, Jonathan's biggest disdain of Simon Mignolet is his distribution. He thinks it's absolutely rubbish, and as many times said on the podcast, that Loris Karius is going to bring something a bit better in terms of distribution. So based on last night's performance,
he is lining you up to get shot.
Thanks for the line up there, mate. I really appreciate it.
How do you feel the qualities of Karius? Did they shine through for you? And what were your general thoughts on his performance?
It was quite obvious that Mr. Klopp, and probably many more of the coaching staff and our players had given him the "don't fuck him about and put your foot through it" speech, because for the first 4 balls that came back to him, he didn't even look sideways. He just put his foot through it and whipped it. It's hard to read a hell of a lot in the performance. I won't lie, I haven't watched it back. But my initial thoughts at the time was I couldn't really fault him for any of the goals. Now, I know you guys were quite adamant, you may have had a better angle of it, that perhaps he could have been a bit more off his line for the first cross. What I would say was there was some defending that was right out of the biggest wank book you could ever get in your life leading up to that goal. His distribution he looked like a guy that was just playing it safe. I thought it was decent. I didn't really fault. It was like when he had to whip it, had to thump it, he thumped it. He still, for me, being super critical, he still, compared to Mingele, he still strikes the ball a hell of a lot cleaner than Mingele does. I didn't see any of the whole slice and it hovers up in the air. When he put it out, even if it went down to Sally or something like that, the player had a chance because the ball has just gone whizzing straight in front of him. There's a couple of crosses he came out for, he dealt with pretty okay. I think I remember him catching one in the first half. He thumped another one away. There was another one then he took a little bit of a shimmy at. But to be honest, it was hard really, much like the Arsenal game, it was hard to read much into his game because he didn't really have a hell of a lot to do. And that's probably more of a focus at our defence, that it's 2 shots again, 2 goals. Well, that's what it seemed like. I know there may have been some more. But would you say he did any big fuck up or mistake that caused us any issues? Probably not. Did he set the world alight? No. Does he need more runs, more games in a row to get to see how he develops from the team? I think hell yes.
I think he needs more hair gel. I personally don't think he uses enough hair gel.
I think Danny Ward deserves his time.
I think Danny Ward does deserve his time. We were discussing this yesterday, and I genuinely have no idea what the point of bringing that lad back off loan was, to then sit him there doing nothing. Either let him play football somewhere else or make him play football here. Don't bring him back and sit him on the bench because you're just wasting him. I was really shocked. I was saying, I don't know whether I said this on off the cuff yesterday, so if it did, fuck off because I'm repeating myself. I didn't realise until recently that he and Karius are the exact same age. I think their birthday is actually the exact same day, which is a bit freaky. But you've got 2 really good young keepers there, and I'm not quite sure why one's getting a look in and the other one isn't. Danny played German. Well last year. Well, yeah, well, there's that. That was part. No, I was going to say that's part of the problem. I don't hate Germans. That was not a German comment.
Jonathan, put them on the list, Jonathan. Put Germans on the list.
I actually like German.
Check.
I like German. No,
no, you don't like anybody.
No, it's also true.
We like German
Krakos. Yeah, they're brilliant. No, we were saying he wasn't very commanding of his box yesterday, and he wasn't. And then I know it's a ridiculous thing to say that it's about his hair, but for a man who clearly takes his looks very seriously, it's not really that big a surprise he's not prepared to stick his face in there and potentially get hurt. He is quite fond of his face, as we've seen. I mean, he must spend more time on Instagram than he does in training.
He definitely isn't putting his head into it like the City keeper, is he?
No.
Have you seen him? To be fair, he is an ugly bastard.
Yeah, see, that's why he doesn't give a shit.
He has a smiley face on tattooed in his neck. Do I say any more?
Hey, he's a happy guy.
I take your smiley face tattooed on his neck and raise you a Moreno monkey.
If you're comparing anybody to Moreno, you've lost an argument.
Yeah.
Right. So keeping on the half glass full. Don't worry, listeners. We will be giving you some proper crud, as we say, towards the defence in a moment. But 2 goals scored in the Champions League game against a team that hadn't conceded in their last 2 games. Let's talk a bit about the goals. The first one, absolutely sensational football. Craig, what was that like to see live?
Brilliant. It was a really good move. To be really honest, and I did mention this on the off the cuff last night, there was a little part of that move that myself and Phil didn't really get to see because the angle we were sitting at, people stood up, but it was a great move down the left, and Moreno did brilliantly, to be fair, to whip the ball across. And after that, it was kind of a blank for me, and the ball ended up in the net. I didn't actually see Firmino get the touch, but it was a lovely sweeping move down our left hand side with some really good interplay and an end product, which is fucking brilliant for a change to see an end product, because I was getting a little bit frustrated with the amount of times we were going wide and seemed to be trying to get to the byline and whip balls into our invisible 6'6" striker in the box.
Yeah, usually the only person in the box at that point was Mo Salah, who's about 4 foot tall. So yeah.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, Phil, going on with the second goal, Mo Salah, hungry, determined, showing that he can mix it up with the big boys and put himself about. What was your thoughts on the first and the second goal?
I love a good deflection. You can't go wrong with a good deflection. Watching the keeper just scramble aimlessly in the wrong direction whilst thinking shit in whatever language he speaks. I don't know what shit is in Spanish.
But you got it just on that point. When their manager got sent off,
adios.
Who knew Liverpool fans could speak Spanish? That must be from the Rafa days.
Exactly. We remember.
After that chant, we were going to order 3 pints in Spanish, and at that point, we've exhausted our Spanish language skills.
To be fair, Keith, at that period of the game, we were certainly at our best, the best we were throughout the entire game. It looked like at that point it was going to go on to be 3-4, maybe even more.
Yeah.
Just a shame, as we're going to get to the second half, didn't pan out exactly how we'd all hoped, and Bobby had that unfortunate incident at the end of the first half.
Absolutely. Penalty miss. Just goes to show that all those people that were saying how easy it is to score penalties to James Milner last season are almost eating their words, because it's not as easy as it looks.
You can't knock a penalty taker. I mean, a penalty is an extremely high-pressured environment, and ultimately, it's a 50-50. You know, it's you versus somebody else. He might get the better, you might miss, you might get a lucky touch, might hit the bar and come out. There's all sorts of scenarios that could happen, so it's definitely not as easy as it looks. And some of these keepers are massive as well. I mean, you got to remember, these guys are like 6'5", massive arm and leg length. If they decide to dive in one direction, they're going to block up usually almost from the middle to the goalpost. So, you know, it's not so easy. Bearing in mind that they also do their research these days. So just as the penalty would have been given, a message would have come from the bench to someone to say he usually goes right, or, you know. So it's certainly not easy. Certainly not as easy as it used to be.
What made it particularly hard was that he gave the keeper the eyes and put him the wrong way. Like that, for it to just hit the post, and it's so frustrating.
I was kind of stood directly behind, and I could see the ball start so bloody far wide. I mean, you have those couple of moments. And to be fair, it did have a serious amount of whip, but not enough to come in and just cracked off the post. And it's hard to put any blame on Bobby. He probably was being little bit too ambitious. Maybe if he hadn't got the goal in the first place earlier, he might have been a bit more cautious with it. But it's hard to put any sort of blame on him. He had a very good game. But that being said, the penalty goes in. I see it's getting different 4 or 5.
More importantly, can you say the word whip again?
Whip.
I like that we say whip. You said whip with a bit. You said whip with a bit of whip.
Yeah, you have to put a bit of whip in it, don't you?
There you go. I can tell you that. Yeah. I like the way you say whip.
Jonathan
he also likes when I whip him, and I have to say it that way as well.
Whip.
Jonathan, aka Stewie Griffin, there with his whip, and with that we'll go on to the topics that I'm sure everybody's been waiting to talk about.
Yes,
as has been the half glass empty part of the pods, and we are going to kick this off with 2 goals that we conceded. So I think it's going to be a question to the floor. I'm going to open this up to you guys. You can pass it on amongst yourselves. Who's to blame for the 2 goals? who are we really bringing the blame to? Some people say it's the defender's fault. Some people say it's the system's fault. Some people blame, the kind of a whole host of things. But Phil, gonna go to you, and you've been itching to get onto this topic. Who is to blame for the 2 goals? So let's talk about the first one.
Defense. So Lovren had one of the worst games I've ever seen him play football yesterday. He was utterly horrendous. And he has moments like this. Lovren will have a moment where you start to think, he's not so bad. Hopefully he'll come good. And then he does something ridiculous or has a stupid game like he did yesterday. He was terrible. I think what made that worse was the fact that Joel Matip was having a really bad night as well, which, to be fair to Joel, is pretty unusual. Matip he's not always prolific, but he's usually at least reliable. Yesterday, all over the shop. There was an incident in the second half when the ball was looping in the air. He's got all the time in the world to get rid of it, and he just heads it straight to one of the opposition players, and then they run straight at us on the counter-attack. There was just no composure from him yesterday, and I think that was a word that we continue to use in the stands, was there was just no composure. They're rushing it. They aren't communicating. We lack a leader, and I've seen a lot of people saying this on social media over the last couple of days, and I couldn't agree more. We lack leadership. I mean, sorry to hark back to it, but back in the day, you'd have Gerrard commanding the whole team, and particularly bossing the midfield and up front, and you'd have Carragher at the back, absolutely commanding that back line. They knew where, I miss the days of hearing, you could have 40,000 fans chanting at the top of the voice. You can still hear Carragher shouting away or commanding someone to come back or hold the line. I miss those days, and we miss that kind of player. We really miss someone with a voice.
Yeah, there's no voice at all in that team. It was very evident at long spells. Like when the game was 2-1 there was nobody to grab it by the scruff of the neck. We were like a crowd of kids playing five-a-side or something like that. We were just completely gung-ho. As you said, Lovren was just Lovren. And then Mapic, he lost the run. Mapic.
Matip.
No one cares about your peach.
No, it's Mapic. And he definitely played like a Mapic last night.
What does your peach play like?
And he whipped it in. At one stage, he's bombing forward, dribbling half the way through, like Beckenbauer coming through into the penalty area. A couple of minutes later, the ball comes to him. He whips it up in the air. He chases the ball back to the corner, then gets absolutely sent to the shops for a bottle of milk, and comes around and then tries to flatten him. It just summed up the game. There's nobody there. How many balls did we win a second ball in midfield all game?
Are we going to actually answer Keith's question, though?
No.
So who was to blame for the goals?
I'm speaking about this.
The first one has to be Emre Can.
There was a multiple mistakes. Yeah, he does bottle a tackle, yes, but there's 2 or 3.
At least he tries it, unlike Hendo.
Yeah, but the ball, it was just too easy. There was multiple mistakes in that move.
So here's the interesting point then, because I mean, of course, we fire the blame at Lovren. We've spoken about Matip, but then we're talking about Emre Can, and this comes almost to an idea of not so much system, but as a collective 11, are we to all blame for the way we defend?
Yes,
because.
Yes,
and that's what I want to come to you. And what is it about ourselves as a collective that means we defend so poorly? Why does this seem to happen? Because
there's no leaders.
Confidence.
So confidence, leaders. What would you say, Craig?
For me, Klopp says it best when he says that we start defending from the front. By the time the ball gets to Karius or to the last fullback or centre back, there's probably been 2 or 3 errors that might go unseen by most of us because it's usually the last mistake or the last defender that gets the blame. So for the ball to get to our fullbacks or centre-backs, our forward line have probably either lost the ball, not closed down, or been caught out of position. Our midfield, which happened a lot last night, especially for Hendo, he was thrown off the ball far too easily. He not pulled out of tackles, but he didn't go through players when he had the chance. He was very lightweight in midfield. So, look, we're being critical of the defence, and probably rightly so to a degree, but defending starts from the front, and this is where we're really missing Lallana, because Lallana in that midfield covers so much ground and cuts out so many balls that probably will never go noticed because it won't cause anything. It won't get to our defence. So yes, the defence should be better, but we defend as a unit. The whole team plays as a unit. So for me, there's fault all around.
Yeah, you've nailed it there, mate. That goes down to what we all spoke about last night, is how our midfield, probably Genie aside, got completely ran over the place. And if there's that like the way we're set up, if it needs to be that full court squeeze, it needs to be tackles, it needs to be the whole press happening in midfield, and they simply just pissed through the middle of us anytime they wanted. Even at the end, they pissed themselves through again. There's no leader. There's nobody just grabbing the game by the scruff of the neck there. Like, it's pretty obvious that one of the players that Klopp has gone out of his way to sign, it's not till next season, but it's Keita. It's that bit of engine in midfield, that bit of drive that we're completely missing without Lallana at the moment. And I don't know. I've been a big fan of Hendo, but I thought he got brutally exposed last night and brutally shown up. And maybe looking forward to the weekend. Maybe it's time to try to drop Chan back as sitting in front of the back four and going with, say, Genie and Phil for Saturday, and just to shake Hendo up a bit, because that's 2 games in a row now. Now it's hard to put any sort of figure into the second half of City, but he was exposed a lot then in the City game, and I thought he was terrible last night. So maybe it's time just to drop Chan back and try that, or just try something different, because he's off the boil at the moment. And for a game last night, we just needed someone with a bit of composure, someone just to settle everybody down, just to close off the game. It's a European Cup game at Anfield. You're 2-1 up. There's 20 minutes or 30 minutes to go. You control that game. You close it out. You grind off. And let's be honest, they came through at the end, and my heart was in my mouth a couple of times. Right at the end, I thought they were straight through. I thought we were going to lose this 3-2.
Well, they nearly scored right at the end. He got one and just put it just wide.
Just chant it wide, yeah. Like that doesn't happen. That can't happen.
Keith, before we came on the pod, me and you spoke, and you said exactly what Jonathan did there. That we didn't play like a team that were 2-1 up.
No.
We played like a team that was chasing the game.
And this is what I wanted to ask Phil. Does Liverpool currently have a problem with defending the ball?
You're clutching at straws now, Keith.
No. Legitimately, in terms of keeping the ball in possession comfortably, do we have an issue? Because I'm watching this game, right? 60th minute gone. And anytime Henderson, Chan, or anyone gets the ball, we want to get it forward as quickly as possible. One touch, one pass, one looping pass, one through ball straight away. Nobody wants to sit with the ball at their feet. Nobody wants to pass it around amongst themselves. So do you think that this is an issue with some of the players, that you talk about composure and stuff like that, but is it a case that we're not that comfortable in keeping the ball and knocking it about ourselves? What's your thoughts on that, Phil?
This is going to be the shortest answer to the longest question in the world. Yes. Yes, there is definitely a problem with that. I think you're right. I think sometimes we try and force it. Do you know what's weird, though? It's always the extremes with Liverpool. And I found this as a fan over the many, many years. The highs are great, the lows are crap, and there's very rarely anything in the middle. And that's kind of how we're playing, because there's moments of the game when you want us to hold up possession in midfield and just calm it down a little bit. And we're doing all this one-touch stuff to rush forward, and then we lose it, and then we've got to suddenly get back because we're on the counter-attack. It's like a tennis match. There's nothing happening in midfield at all. And then the other extreme of that is that they keep going back to the keeper. So they'll then mess about at the back for a bit.
That does
so it's like
fucking head in.
Oh, mine too, especially when you're trying to score, and you're like, listen, the goal's the other end, right? Because they're just messing about with the keeper, one-touch stuff, and let's be honest, neither of them are particularly comfortable with that kind of system anyway. They both look uncomfortable. Karius, again, in keeping with Liverpool, is the extremes. He either holds onto the ball and waits for someone to come and try and tackle him and only just manages to get rid of it, giving every fan in the stadium and at home heart failure. Or he does what he does last night, which is the ball comes within half a yard of him and he's smashing it as far away as humanly possible. There's no composure. I think Jonathan used the word composure. Composure is a great word. It might have been me, which is why it's a great word. But we do lack the composure. If we're not attacking, we're not quite sure what we're doing. And I think that goes for our defence as well. If we are not attacking, we don't know what we're supposed to be doing. I've also said this quite a lot as we've got along, that there never seems to be a plan B with this. So if our keeping the ball or rushing forward isn't working, we continue to just carry on doing it. Sometimes we'll change at like the 80th minute and there's no point changing it. Or we'll bring a new player on and try and change the system slightly. But we leave stuff way too late and don't seem to have a plan B, which is why we can go from playing such phenomenal football against teams that the plan A works against to utter, dire, boring, what the hell are we doing football when plan A doesn't work.
Jonathan, how much of that, of what Phil said, is down to Jurgen Klopp's game management?
It's a difficult question to answer. I was actually thinking about this a lot today. We all know the way Klopp wants to play, and I think for periods of that second half especially, we didn't play as he would have liked because we didn't have that intensity on the press. Maybe Baron, say, Gini and Bobby aside, we didn't really have that intensity. We certainly didn't have it with the other two guys in midfield because the other two of them for large periods of the game were chasing shadows. So, like a Klopp's way of playing football is pretty simple. It's squeeze the life out of teams high up the pitch so they make errors. So when the ball comes back to defence, their passes a second off astray or it's been cleared out at that stage. It's not sitting deep and going. So when that intensity in our pressing and our counter pressing isn't there, which it wasn't for large periods of the game, we're brutally exposed.
But in terms of those situations, then is it not up to Jurgen Klopp to be the voice to say, okay, if the counter pressing is not working, if Henderson and Chan, who personally looked gassed at times in the second half, are missing presses, is it not up to him then to be shouting instructions to say, okay, lads, let them have the ball. Let them have the ball. Let them bring it up to the halfway line, and then we can move from there. Is that not his job? Isn't that something he should be doing more of? In matches.
There's two ways of looking at it. The good football teams and the great football teams of whether it's our own great football teams or other football teams for other teams worldwide always have leaders on the pitch that can react to a situation. Gerrard, Keane, Vieira, they all have a centre midfielder that could dictate the pace of the game. So when the game needed speeding up, they would do it. If the game needed slowing down, they do it. If people needed to be hammered into life, or if they needed instructions passing on in-game reading of the game, or whether it be centre midfielder or centre defence, there's none of that in our team at the moment, and we're just like a crowd of children at times. Is that a reflection on Klopp? Probably is to a certain extent, but. Like he was geeing up the team as much as he can. He's waving his hands around the place. He's bellowing at the players for large periods of the second half there. You can see he's clearly frustrated. Is it his responsibility that the players don't react? Craig, you want to shoot in there?
Yeah, just something you said there, kind of something went off in my head and you raised something that I hadn't thought about before. We're quite a young side and we don't have, as you said, we don't have those, we can say senior pros, but those wise heads, as you correctly stated there, we don't have the Gary McAllisters. We don't have the couple of 32, 33-year-olds there that we can bring onto these situations. Like we have Milner, look, fair enough. And Milner is a proven winner. He's been around, he's won league titles, he's won things at Man City. So bar him, we don't have that wise head that we can bring on and control the game because heaven knows Henderson hasn't got it in him to batten down the hatches or slow down the game. He does have it in him to control the tempo of a game when we're looking to press forward. But closing down shop, he's not in it, or our game intelligence is very, very poor. I've said it before, and time again, I'm going to keep screaming for it. We need a bastard in midfield. We need that person, and we need a wise head as well. We need proper senior pros that are 29, 30, 31 years of age to be in that squad. We need a mix of experience to control these games from a psychological point of view because we're soft. We're damn soft.
And just to grab someone and just give a player a bollock and say, what the hell are you doing? Come back here, sit here. This is where you should be. Watch your markers on.
Phil, you said to me during the game at one point that Jimmy Milner was tearing Moreno a new asshole at one point.
He was. Yeah, so I don't think it was him, actually. It was Gomez. So there was an incident.
Let's just say it was Moreno, because we like to wind Keith up. So it was definitely Moreno.
Right, definitely Moreno. But no, there was an incident where they were rushing for the ball, Cop end, second half, and Gomez was pissed off at Moreno, was pissed off at the referee's decision. Referee gave them a free kick, and he's jumping up and down, fuming kind of with frustration and then arguing with the ref. And James Milner from the touchline, warming up, absolutely rollicked him, screamed at him, extended his arm, pointed right back to the right back spot and was like, get back there now. As in, like, the decision's already been made, stop singing and dancing, stop jumping, get back and do your job. And, you know, as much as Milner is an aging player and he makes some mistakes and he's a little bit sluggish sometimes on the pitch, you're absolutely right in terms of the fact that he is a leader. I think it's kind of strange thing to say this, but he comes across as quite a quiet kind of guy. He doesn't seem like a leader, but at the moment he is. But I think that's more to do with the fact that Liverpool lack leaders, so he is probably one of the stronger leaders that we've got, simply because of his age. But actually, you wouldn't say he was a leader. I mean, if he was in, I go back to them again, but if he was in the squad with Carragher and Gerrard, you wouldn't even look at him and say that he's a leader.
He'd fit right in, though, wouldn't he? He'd fit right in alongside those guys. He'd thrive with lads like that beside him.
Absolutely. But that's it. We're trying to... I've not thought of that either, really, actually, Craig, and I think that's a really valid point. We are lacking old-headed leadership.
Like, look at our older players. We've got Clavan.
Yeah.
There's no
moving swiftly onwards.
This has to be looked at from a point of view of our recruitment as well, because there's something to be said. Like, look, United went out and got. Now I know he's not an older player, but Matic came in.
He's a winner.
Exactly, and he's an experienced player who's been around top level football, knows how to control games. We might have to pay 8, 10, 15 million for this 30-year-old, and we might not have a resale value on him. But what he might bring to the team over 2 or 3 seasons, from a mentality point of view, from a coaching point of view, and bringing players on, letting them know where they should be, and just putting a mentality into our team, because we are soft. I keep saying it. It's been proven by the finals we've lost, and we just have a soft mentality at the minute.
And final thoughts on this game. Obviously, Jordan Henderson, you guys have touched on it. We've touched on leadership, and Jordan Henderson has taken the majority of the flack for this draw. Phil, should Jordan Henderson be our captain?
No.
Why?
No. Oh God, that's a hard one. No, because he's not. A, he's not a leader. Number one. B, I kind of imagine your captain as being somebody that you aspire to be. You know, the younger kids can look up to him. The older pros in the team can look at him and say, you know, that's my captain. That's somebody who I want to learn from. That's somebody I can turn to for help. All that kind of stuff. Does anybody really look and aspire to be Jordan Henderson? You know,
maybe kids from Sunderland.
Other than Jordan Henderson. I mean, and I think the other thing to consider with that is that, you know, he's not come back the same player after his injury. He's not. So he's trying to carry his own game. He's trying to pick himself back up and get back to where he was. And I actually tweeted the other day and said that I think he should step down as captain and just focus on his own game. That being said, somebody very rightly asked me on Twitter, well, who should be the captain then? Who should replace him? And that's where this answer gets difficult. Because if it's a open-ended, you know, should Jordan Henderson be the captain of Liverpool? No, he shouldn't. If it's should Jordan Henderson be the captain of Liverpool, and if not, who from the current squad replaces him? Then it's a much more difficult question to answer.
Absolutely.
Because there isn't a ready-made replacement. There is nobody in that squad that you're looking at saying, it's you, you should be captain.
The next captain doesn't play for us at the moment.
That's a good shout. I would have said, from my point of view, if he had signed a new contract, I would have said Emre Can is a captain in the making.
Not yet, though.
No, not yet, but he probably won't be here next season either, so...
Might be a captain at Juventus in a few years.
I hope he proves us all wrong, you know that, and signs a new contract. I really hope he does.
Oh, so do I.
Well, while we're talking about Emre Can, I mean, his performance was not befitting of somebody that's going to walk into Juventus's midfield. He was hot and cold. Do you feel that sometimes the occasion gets to Emre Can, Jonathan?
Yes, he took too many touches of the bloody ball last night. He was too slow, too sluggish. Disappeared for long periods of the game. Was overran for long periods of the game. For a guy that's talking about wanting to play, the big Champions League nights, talk is cheap, buddy. But he didn't. He didn't walk the walk last night. In my mind, maybe I'm being a little harsh, but he wasn't.
I think he bottled it.
Yeah, he did bottle it. At the game, there was crying out in the second half there for somebody just to grab the bloody game by the scruff of the neck, just to get hold of the ball and just pass and move. It was slow. It was sluggish. Yeah, no, it was a bit of a horror shock, to be fair, our midfield at the best of times.
I think that Emre Can has a couple of issues. One, is he suited to the tempo of the Premier League? I've asked myself this question on a lot of occasions because he has all the technique. He's got the touches. He's one of the best. What's the phrase I'm trying to say? Not blockers of a football, but he can protect the football very well. He knows how to put his body around. He knows how to
put his arses into it, doesn't he?
Exactly. So, from that sense, he's suited for the Premier League. But I think the likes of the Italian league, where he has that second or half second more to have a look up, take that touch, might suit him a little bit more. And I wonder if that's gotten into his own head, if he's just treading water. Because look, let's be honest, if he hasn't signed a contract by January, he's gone by the end of the season, because Juventus will just, if they haven't already, will just come into his agent and say, look, there's 170 grand a week or whatever he needs on a signing on bonus.
I still think it's a lot to do with Keita, because he doesn't get in this side with Keita here. He's on the bench. So unless he raises his game pretty quickly and forces his way into the manager's thinking, I think that probably plays quite a heavy part in his mind. And you might be right, maybe he is off the pace, and that's exactly why he is looking at it, because he can be average, or one of these players that we look at in a few years and go, do you remember when everyone was raving about him and they never lived up to his potential? Or he can go to a slower league, not a lesser league, slower league perhaps, where he's got a bit more time on the ball and he'll be an absolute superstar.
Keith, can I ask you something about Emre Can? And it touched on what Phil said there. Do you think that, from the club's point of view now on this question, that was part of the whole thing about giving Keita, agreeing to buy Keita and not taking him from next season? Did they have in their head that, okay, look, we might end up losing Emre Can for nothing? He cost us 10 million. We buy Keita, we have him coming in as a ready-made replacement. Do you think that might be something in Klopp's thinking?
I actually thought that the thinking behind Keita was to ultimately bring in for more Phil Coutinho, because the idea was that we were going to drop Phil Coutinho into the 8, so in the middle, so play him as a midfield 2. And the idea was almost that Phil's going to go, so we need someone who's going to kind of make assists and goals from the midfield area. A bit like how I believe that Ox may be the long-term replacement for Lallana. Keita was to come in for Coutinho. I don't think he was a ready-made replacement for Emre. I don't know. As I said, I thought it would have been Coutinho and not Emre Can. Emre, I still think Klopp has a slight belief that he can convince him to stay for another season if we have a good Champions League run. I think Emre was definitely one of the players that has been talking Champions League when Klopp has been talking about contract renewals and players coming into the club. So if we can prove to Emre that we can qualify more frequently, then he might stay. But no, I actually thought Keita... Go on.
The irony in the fact that Emre Can has been the one talking about Champions League, yet a few more performances like that and we won't be in it anymore.
Yeah.
He's going to be one of the reasons that we're not in the Champions League if he doesn't book us out.
Therein is another reason for him going to somewhere like Juventus. It's a 3-team league probably between Juventus, Roma and possibly Napoli. So he's going to be pretty much guaranteed Champions League football year after year after year, no matter what. Whereas in England, there's always 6 clubs fighting for 4 places.
Absolutely. Well, coming back into England, we have a mouth-watering clash this weekend at home to Burnley. Remember them? They caused us nothing but issues last season. And I wanted to get your boys' thoughts on this. Burnley at home. What do you expect what do you expect to happen on the pitch, Phil? How do you expect this game to go down?
We'll win 3-1 and Chris Wood will score against us.
Jonathan?
I expect a lot of changes. I think the team needs a bit of freshening up. I'd say you could see 2 or 3 changes to the team. I'd like to see Hendo given a rest. Probably bring Coutinho into that midfield. Go Chan, Coutinho, and Gini, and bring Sturridge in up top. That's what I would like to see. I just think the whole thing needs to be freshened up a little. It's the typical the game after Champions League. At least we didn't have a lot of travel. Could be a potential banana skin. They're just one of those kind of horrible teams to play. They'll just be aggressive in your face. Will work all like Trojans all day. It's like anything. If we get an early goal, it could be okay. But if the game goes longer and they sit deeper and deeper, it could be our first challenge of the year to break down a packed defence. But hopefully we'll have enough just to edge this one out.
Craig, 3:00 kickoff on a Saturday. Not a lot of time to recover. Just how dangerous are Burnley? They've already beaten Chelsea at home at Stamford Bridge. How dangerous are Burnley, and what should Liverpool and Liverpool fans be looking out for?
2 words, 1 name: Jonathan Walters. Never mind your Chris Woods, Phil. That's the boy you want to be looking out for. If ever there was a fella who loved to score, a Tory that loves to score against Liverpool, there's no surer thing than Jonathan Walters would be up for it if he's on the pitch. I'm actually going to predict a 2-0 win this time, and I actually put a vote up on our Twitter account earlier on regarding our midfield and what people wanted to see. But a lot of people seem to be in agreement that they want to see Chamberlain given 90 minutes. They want to see him given a start in the midfield. Coutinho has to start. He just has to. And other than that, I'd like to see Chan and Henderson dropped and Gini play in there. I'd just like to see something completely different, because what we have now isn't working, and Chamberlain deserves his 90 minutes. He deserves a starting place to see what he can do. Because
so you're going... Sorry, are you going, just get my head around it, I'm a bit sleepy here. You're going Chamberlain, Gini, Coutinho as midfield 3?
Absolutely.
Interesting.
That's where I'm going. Fuck this defensive midfielder.
Interesting.
We don't need any of it. The other option, I suppose, is to go putting Coutinho, maybe going Chan, Gini, and Ox, and then moving Coutinho out to the left, putting Sturridge to the centre and giving Firmino a rest.
I just don't like Coutinho on the left.
Phil, doesn't Daniel Sturridge deserve a start?
Daniel Sturridge can't handle a start.
You heard it here first. But surely, Coutinho into the 8, Daniel Sturridge gets a bit of a run around, gets to play with Firmino and Salah. That could be quite devastating. And the actual striker, because the issue is we suffer against packed defences, so surely we should try and play with an actual out-and-out striker.
You are absolutely right. You are absolutely right. And it could be devastating and it could be deadly. But the most deadly thing on that pitch is going to be Daniel Sturridge running around. Because he will get injured and then we'll have no striker again for another 6 months. I've made this point really clear on Off the Cuff as well, and a few other pods where I've said, listen, for me, Daniel Sturridge is now at that stage in his career that he can be a fantastic player coming off the bench for the last 20, 25 minutes. He should not be given 90 minutes. I think that's a really bad idea.
How do you think this game's going to go down?
Do you know, I think we'll have way too much firepower for them, which is why I've gone for the 3-1. But, I mean, Craig's a brave man, but I can't see us keeping a clean sheet. There is no combination in our defence at the moment that I think is capable of commanding a clean sheet. We might get one if we're lucky, as we did, and we've ridden our luck a few times, but I can't see it. I really can't see it. As I said, I think Chris Wood's going to score against us. The way he plays does not complement our defenders at all. He's really going to cause some problems. I can't see him doing too much, but I do think he'll bag a goal. And like I said, we've definitely got too much firepower for them. Look, I love Daniel Sturridge. I think Daniel Sturridge is a fantastic player. I just I'm sick of how injured he gets all the time. So if we now have to recognise that the most sensible thing to do with Daniel Sturridge is to play him for 15, 20 minutes a game or 25 minutes or whatever it will be, then so be it. But let's manage him properly. Let's play to his strengths, because it helps nobody playing him a couple of games, 90 minutes, and then he's out for the next 4 months. That helps nobody.
Do you not give him 60 though, Phil? Perhaps.
Maybe. I just want to wrap the lad in cotton wool. I literally want to take him off the bench in about the 70th minute, score a goal, and substitute him back off again. I think
I'm a nice guy, Phil.
I'm genuinely that worried about you. I'm worried about you, Danny boy. I'm worried about you.
I'm sure his agent's loving Phil's idea.
He needs to go to Pain Solutions.
His career will be prolonged till he's about 38.
Craig, humbled at City, a draw that's felt like a defeat against Sevilla. Just how important is this game against Burnley for the confidence of this team?
Yeah, you see, I asked the lads last night, did they believe that the City result had anything to do with their mindset in that Sevilla game, and I suppose none of us really know, but if we don't get a win here, it's going to have some reverberations, certainly throughout the supporter base and certainly throughout the stadium, and it'll just be, I can almost write the fucking Twitter posts and the headlines already, the same problems as seasons before. We can't beat the lower, lesser teams at Anfield. We don't know how to beat a low block. I can just see it over and over again. We have to win. It's a big game. We have to win. It's more important that we win this game and we could afford a loss to Leicester in the League Cup. This is more important.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. I think a nice commanding 3-0 victory would set the perfect tone for us to go into the season. Not only would it show that we can recover well after Champions League games, but it can also prove that these low blocks theories can be, we can start putting them to bed with a good victory against Burnley. Jonathan, you are the man with the prediction team sheets. You do them every post game on your Twitter account, and if any of you guys aren't already following Jonathan, please sure to do so, because he does put out some pretty accurate team sheets there. Who's the 11 that starts on Saturday? What's your 11?
Jesus, talk about putting me on the hop. Bear in mind, I left my house at 7:30 yesterday morning. I'm just in the door after 4 hours sleep last night, so the mind wouldn't be working the best.
Stop lying. You've been thinking about this all day in work.
All day.
Basically, what that means is, if it's right, give me all the credit. If it's wrong, I was tired.
He's spending too much time with us too, Phil.
Tired and emotional. Mengele, Trent, Mapic, Lovren. I hope Robertson. I really hope Robertson, but it's kind of getting to the stage now where there doesn't seem to be any trust there. It's going longer and longer without a start. Fuck it, I'll go Robertson. What I think and what I want are two different things. Chan, Genie, Coutinho, Salah, Sturridge.
This is painful.
Chamberlain.
It's like watching the live exam channel.
Yeah, I'm trying to think in my head. You see, you did. If I had been prepared, you probably, in fairness, you probably had it on the agenda there that I didn't read. But I'll put out a proper one tomorrow night when I have a bit of time to think about it. But that's off the cuff. That's mine.
You could have that. You could have that one. And there we go, ladies and gentlemen. ARW. We don't sleep. All we do is pod and talk about Liverpool 24/7. Despite how tired Jonathan is, he still managed to give us that 11, and note that down and see that if he's right. Then
if you're looking to follow Jonathan, his account is at LFC Crackcore.
Brilliant. Well, it's been an emotional roller coaster this week. The past week at the port. Sorry,
I've got back pain. It's been that emotional. Got emotional back pain.
Phil's got emotional back pain. Jonathan needs to get some bed rest, and Craig is just looking bewildered into the sunshine, thinking, "Are we ever going to break down a low block again?" It's been as I said, it's been a emotional week. 5-0 defeat, a 2-2 draw that's felt more like a defeat, and a huge game on Burnley. If you go into the game, we're going to need all the noise and support that the players can get to really break down these bastards and really get a victory underneath our belts. Craig, Phil, Jonathan, thank you so much for joining me today. You lot have been absolutely wonderful as always. This has been the ARW Weekly. My name's Keith, and I hope you have a lovely evening. Take care. Bye-bye.